Hello, I'm Dr. Erin Yelland for K-State Research and Extension. Did you know that over 10% of older Americans are victims of elder abuse each year? For that reason, it is so important to know the warning signs of abuse and steps that you can take to help prevent abuse and report it if you suspect that it's occurring. K-State Research and Extension is proud to offer education on elder abuse and neglect, what you should know. The facts about elder abuse are clear, and they're quite frightening. As I mentioned in the introduction, at least 10% of older Americans are victims of elder abuse each year. But what's even scarier is that it's only suspected that 1 in 14 cases are actually reported to the authorities. So when we say that 10% are victims of abuse, in reality, it is so much more. There's so much that can be done to help protect our elders, and if you're an older adult yourself, there's steps that you should take to recognize signs of abuse and report it yourself. Today we're going to go through some of those warning signs of abuse and talk about the different types of abuse and steps that you can take to help prevent it and report it in your own life. But first, let's go through what is elder abuse and what is the definition of that. In Kansas, elder abuse is defined as an intentional act or a failure to act that causes or is likely to cause harm to an adult. So that does not mean that it has to be an active act of aggression. It could be something as simple as the intention to cause harm to an older adult. Another thing to keep in mind with that definition is the failure to act part, and that is where we're really talking about neglect. So if an older adult is not receiving the type of care that they should be, or the degree and quality of care that they should be, that can also be considered elder abuse. If you have questions about whether or not something is really considered elder abuse, it's really best to talk to the authorities, and I'll give you that information later. But if you suspect elder abuse is happening, you won't get in trouble for reporting it, even if it turns out to be a false suspicion. So it's important to keep in mind that if you have that suspicion, it's best to report it. It's also important to understand that there are a variety of types of abuse that older adults can experience. It's not always just physical abuse and having that type of negative physical behavior towards another individual. It can include a lot of different things. One of the most common that we hear about or that we think about is physical abuse, that physical aggression towards an individual. A big warning sign of physical abuse are unexplained bruises and wounds and things like that. So any type of physical aggression towards another adult is considered physical elder abuse. There's also emotional or psychological abuse, and that can be really scary. And that is really when you are degrading to an individual. Perhaps someone is being yelled at or screamed at, or they're experiencing some severe psychological distress from a caregiver, a family member, or even a friend. That type of abuse is worth reporting to the proper authorities as well. The next type of abuse that we'll talk about is sexual abuse. And sexual abuse is so frightening, and it's not something that we want to even think about happening to older adults, but it happens. Sexual abuse is any non-consensual sexual act that can happen, or even exposing older adults to sexual acts as well without their permission. Sexual abuse is thankfully not very common, but when it does happen, it's very scary and very frightening for older adults or any person who has experienced sexual abuse in their lifetime. The next type of abuse is neglect and abandonment. Neglect is something where a caregiver simply fails to provide the care that they promised they would give to that individual. That could be leaving an individual in soiled or dirty clothing, not bathing them appropriately or as frequently as what they should. That could be even withholding medications or proper treatments that an individual should be receiving. And abandonment can oftentimes go hand in hand with neglect, where an older adult is simply abandoned of the care that they deserve. The last form of elder abuse that we'll talk about today is financial abuse, which is also called exploitation. And that's really when you take funds from older adults without their consent. Maybe you're stealing from them, or you even use funds without them knowing. Maybe you gain an improperly obtained power of attorney for their finances. There's a lot of different things that can fall into that financial abuse or exploitation category. And one of the big ones that we'll talk about today is scams. The next thing that we'll talk about are common warning signs, and we'll get to that after the break.
Hi?
We're looking for insurance.
Let's see who's free.
When insurance agents work for only one company, their options are simply limited. But a Trusted Choice independent agent is free to shop many companies for a better deal. Free to do what's right for you.
Let us shop for you. Contact Rogers & Associate to learn more.
What a girl wants in her home kitchen. Ease of use, flexibility, fun, the latest kitchen design, Frigidaire Professional Real Stainless Steel for fewer finger smudges, a French door refrigerator, convection cooking, a quiet dishwasher. Have the staff at Genuine Appliance in Hayes demonstrate new Frigidaire Professional appliances to find what you want. Genuine Appliance at 1224 East 27th in Hayes. Everything a girl wants.
Welcome back. I'm Dr. Erin Yelland for K-State Research and Extension, and today we're talking about what you should know about elder abuse and neglect. We talked already about the definitions of elder abuse and the types of abuse that can occur, but now it's really important that you understand some common warning signs of abuse. One of the first common warning signs, particularly for physical abuse, are unexplained wounds. Any wound that might occur that an individual doesn't really have a good answer for, or they're not really able to consistently explain how it got there, might be a reason for concern. It also is especially concerning when an individual has a wound or a bruise that is in the shape of a particular object or even a hand. That oftentimes can really be a big red warning flag for physical abuse. A next warning sign is unexplained changes in routine or behavior. This could be things like sudden mood changes, which is the next thing on our list, but could also be maybe they used to attend weekly bridge clubs or bowling meetings and used to go out every morning with their friends for coffee, and suddenly they're not doing that anymore. There might be a reason why, and that could be that potentially they're being a victim of abuse in their own home or in the facility in which they live. So if you experience any of these unexplained changes in routine or behavior, or unexplained wounds and types of bruises and things like that, it might be a cause for concern. The next type of unexplained issue that we're going to be particularly concerned about are changes in financial situation. And this is a big warning flag for financial abuse and exploitation. So many older adults who are victims of abuse will experience this sudden change in their financial situation. What that means is that they might have been pretty well off and had their retirement account set and they were ready to go for the rest of their life financially. And now all of a sudden they're struggling to make ends meet. That can be particularly challenging for older adults. And if they're not able to make those ends meet anymore, whereas previously they were, that might be a big concern or a big sign of abuse or potential exploitation occurring. Another big warning sign that we'll see is the improper use of restraints or medication. And what that means is that an individual may be physically restrained so that they can't get up and move around. They might also have been given medication to help sedate them or calm them down so that they can't get agitated or even be physically aggressive if that's a sort of a behavior that's associated with a disease they might be experiencing. The improper use of restraints and medication is incredibly concerning and is something that you need to keep your eye out for individuals who are living at home or individuals who might be living in a long-term care facility. This is particularly common in individuals who are suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's disease. We will oftentimes see that individuals who have these diseases that are victims of abuse may have been unnecessarily given medication to help calm them down and to relax them when that really was not necessary at all, and that is elder abuse. The last warning sign that we'll talk about is hesitation, fearfulness, or agitation at a caregiver. This is particularly true if you notice this is suddenly occurring, whereas it didn't really happen before, they had a good relationship, and now all of a sudden you're noticing some strange behaviors. Perhaps they don't want that caregiver to come over anymore. Perhaps they're acting really scared and nervous when that caregiver is around. That might be a warning sign. Now, it is so important to know that just because you see one of these warning signs in your loved one or a family member or friend, that doesn't mean that they're being abused. However, it is so important that if you suspect something, that you report it. Because if you don't report it, someone else may not notice, and if they are being abused, they won't get the help that they need. So these warning signs don't mean that yes, someone is definitely being abused, but they are warning signs that we need to pay close attention and really see what's going on in that situation. The next thing that we'll talk about is who is more at risk for elder abuse. Absolutely everybody is at risk for elder abuse, regardless of your income, race, ethnicity, religion. Everyone can potentially be a victim of elder abuse. There are some individuals who are more at risk than others, and those individuals can be female, those who are particularly elderly, especially if they're older and more frail, those who are socially isolated, meaning they don't have a whole lot of friends and family around. Perhaps they don't attend church or the senior center in town. Perhaps they just spend more time to themselves in their home. Individuals who suffer from dementia are also at a higher risk of experiencing elder abuse. And finally, those individuals who are prior victims of abuse can also be more likely to be abused when they're an older adult. And that is particularly talking about individuals who were victims of domestic violence or spousal abuse during their marriage. Just because they get older and become more elderly and frail doesn't mean that that abuse is going to cease or stop. So if someone was a prior victim of abuse in their family or in a marriage, that abuse can also certainly continue well into their older adult years. After the break, we're going to come back and talk about who's more likely to perpetrate abuse, but also steps that we can take to help prevent elder abuse and how to report it.
Storage Solutions is invested in complete customer satisfaction. You can choose a drive-up unit or a climate-controlled unit. Plus, you can choose from storage units of all sizes to fit your inventory. And that's not all. They'll sign for your packages and deliver and unload them into your unit. Storage Solutions has been named in the top 100 U-Haul dealers 6 times. Rent a pickup, cargo van, or a moving truck to keep your goods on the go. Remember, making moving and storing easy is Storage Solutions in Hayes and Victoria.
Make a difficult choice an easy one with Cedar View Assisted Living's knowledgeable and caring staff. Your loved one will be professionally taken care of as they transition into their new community. With movies, holiday parties, planned exercises, and games, residents will have opportunities every day to enjoy their time at Cedar View. Multiple room styles are available, ensuring a just right fit for your loved one. Come see Cedar View Assisted Living for yourself next to Sternberg Museum. The care you need, the home you want.
Welcome back. I'm Dr. Erin Yelland for K-State Research and Extension, and today we're talking about what you need to know about elder abuse and neglect. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is who is more likely to perpetrate abuse, and sadly, the statistics here are quite scary. 90% of all perpetrators of abuse, of elder abuse, are family members. Most commonly, that's going to be an adult child or a spouse. But 90% of the time, the individual who has inflicted abuse upon an older adult is going to be a family member. And that is so disheartening and scary, but it makes sense because those are the individuals who are generally closest to that older adult and have the most ability to inflict that abuse upon them. There are other characteristics that can make an individual more likely to abuse an older adult. And those characteristics are having a history of drug or alcohol abuse or being financially dependent upon that older adult. So individuals who have this history of drug or alcohol abuse may turn to an older adult to take money from them to support their habit, or they may be financially dependent upon that older adult, and when they need money, they take it in ways that the older adult does not even realize. So those types of characteristics can be big warning signs for family members to watch out. Now, I'm not saying that that individual is definitely going to abuse an older adult, but those are characteristics that the research shows can make an individual more likely to abuse an older adult, whether that's physically, sexually, or even financially. The next thing that we're going to talk about is financial abuse. This is the most common form of elder abuse in Kansas and across much of the United States. Thankfully, we don't see a whole lot of physical abuse and sexual abuse, and in those cases where we do, it is so unfortunate. But most cases of elder abuse are in that financial or exploitation category, which is really scary because we're taking away an individual's means to survive. One of the ways that we see most older adults being targeted for financial abuse or exploitation is through scams. And there are so many different types of scams across the United States. And unfortunately, they change on a day-by-day, minute-by-minute basis. So it's really hard for researchers and experts to keep up with what exactly are the scams that are currently targeting older adults. But the hot ones that we typically see are telemarketing, phone, charity, or imposter scams. And one of the big ones that we'll see in that category are grandparent scams. And in fact, we've experienced this in my own family with my grandparents, where an individual called my grandmother pretending to be my male cousin and said, "Help, Grandma, I'm in trouble and I need money sent to me now." Thankfully, she knew enough to call his mom and check in and say, "Hey, is everything okay? Where is he at? What's going on?" And they informed her that he was in fact okay and that she didn't need to be sending money to help him get out of trouble. But it's so important that you are always cognizant of who you're talking to on the phone and that you pay attention to unique cues that they may be missing on the phone call, such as revealing your grandchild's name, or maybe they're being too vague. If you see any of those warning signs, it's a good sign that it might be a grandparent scam. Another type of scam that we'll often see is Medicare or health insurance scams. So this could be an individual who calls and pretends to be a collector from Medicare, saying that you owe money on your Medicare accounts and that you didn't pay for your Medicare bills. Well, that individual could be a scammer, and it's so important that you are asking the correct questions when you're on the phone with that individual to make sure that you're not getting scammed, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The last scam that I want you to be aware of are the sweepstakes, the prizes, or the lottery scams. And those are particularly scary because they know how to get you excited. They'll get on the phone and say, "Hey, you've won $30,000, but in order to claim your prize, you need to send me $1,000 to unlock the account." And that is where the scam comes in. Once you send them that money, you'll never get it back and you'll never see it again, and there is no $30,000. So always be aware that there are scammers out there and they love to target older adults because they consider older adults to be easy prey. Well, my challenge to you is to not be easy prey for scammers. Be cognizant of who you're talking to, ask questions, and beware that they're out there. Something that I really want you to know is that the IRS and the Medicare agencies will never contact you and threaten you or demand immediate payment for services. This is a big scam that's been going on recently across Kansas and across the United States. But it's so important that you know that these federal agencies will never demand immediate payment. They will never require a specific payment method, such as a prepaid card. So individuals who are scamming you may ask that you go and get a prepaid card because it's not traceable and they can't get that money back once you put it on that prepaid card and send it to them. They will also never threaten you or use scare tactics, and they will never ask for your Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security numbers. Those federal agencies have all of that information for you, and they will never ask you to confirm those numbers over the phone. So if you talk to someone on the phone who asks you for your Social Security number, your Medicaid, or your Medicare number, be very hesitant to give it out to them because those federal agencies simply will not ask for that number over the phone. The last thing that I want to tell you about is what to do if you suspect abuse. Suspecting abuse can be a really scary situation and can make you feel like you're in a hard spot. But if you suspect abuse, it is so important to report it because you'll never know if something's really going on or if it's just an accident. My first rule of thumb is to always report it, even if it's just a suspicion. But definitely if you have seen an active threat of abuse or an active act of abuse, it is so important to always report the suspected elder abuse. If a person is in immediate danger, we encourage you to call 911 to protect that individual. But if an individual is not in immediate danger, but you suspect something might be happening or you know something is happening, there are 2 different agencies to call in Kansas. If you suspect that elder abuse is happening in a residential home, it is important to call Adult Protective Services. And in Kansas, their phone number is 1-800-922-5330. If you suspect that abuse is occurring in a long-term care facility, such as a nursing home or assisted living, or if you suspect that it's happening in a hospital, you are to call the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services, or KDADS, at 1-800-842-0078. The bottom line is, if you suspect abuse is occurring, you need to report it, or else no one ever will. The last thing that we're going to talk about is how you can help. Aside from reporting if you suspect elder abuse or if you see it happening, it's so important that there are some other steps you can take, that you are aware of those as well. Particularly if you are a caregiver, whether that's for a spouse, a friend, or an adult child with disabilities. It is so important that you ask for help and take a break. So many times we see adult caregivers simply get burnt out and tired, and then they make poor decisions that they wouldn't have otherwise made. It is so important that you be proactive in your caregiving and ask for help or a break if you need it. It is also important that even if you are not providing direct day-to-day care, that you remain involved in your loved ones' lives. Keep an eye on those older adults in your family. Go and visit them. Ask them how they're doing. Make sure that things appear as they should in the home. If you suspect something is going on or you're not sure, maybe you can drop by unannounced at an odd period in the day to see how things are going and to check on that individual. But it's so important that you remain involved in their lives. Lastly, be mindful of any changes, big or small, and educate your loved ones about elder abuse. So it's so important that we are aware that elder abuse can occur, those warning signs of abuse and the types of abuse that can occur, but it's so important that we all understand that any change, big or small, can be a big warning sign for elder abuse. Elder and abuse and neglect is so scary, and it affects so many older adults. So again, I challenge you to learn more about elder abuse, stay involved in your loved ones' lives, and if you suspect something is occurring, please report it to the proper agency. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Dr. Erin Yelland for K-State Research and Extension. And as always, if you have any questions about elder abuse and neglect or any other topic, I encourage you to reach out to your local K-State Research and Extension office. We are included in all 105 counties across the state, and we are dedicated to providing unbiased, research-based information to all Kansans.